Hi guys, Ian here, aka Hura Mantra. Welcome to my channel and to another video. And today I want to talk to you just for a little while about free will and the importance of free will in spiritual evolution. Now this is something that's been on my mind quite a bit over the last few days, and when something is really, in my mind a lot, that's when I tend to want to make a video and just express it and share my thoughts. So it's going to be a kind of a stream of consciousness thing. I've got nothing prepared, no notes, so it's going to be rambling and probably a bit confusing, but you know what I'm like by now. So free will then, what is it and why are we told that of all of the created beings, of the spiritual beings, of which we are one, because we are a spiritual being living for a time in a manifest body, of all of the created spiritual beings, we are the only ones who have free will. Now, if I think back to my time in the church, and most of you who will have seen my videos will know that for many, many years I was part of a charismatic Christian church. And the teaching of the church was that free will was given to humanity, that by and through our own choice we would worship and glorify God. Now, I think that's really simplistic, and whilst there might be something in that, I think it misses so much more and other factors which really explain why humanity has free will and why humanity is the only spiritual being that does have free will. So firstly then, let's just have a look at free will in a context that we can easily understand, and that is the free will of a child, and how when a child is born, much of its free will is curtailed or limited by the presence of the parent, because the child is not developed enough to know when things are dangerous, when things are harmful. And so there's a great deal of supervision going on, and the parent dictates much of what happens with the child, which is right and proper. But the goal of the parent and their hope is that their child will grow up to be a completely self-sufficient adult who is valid and valued by the society in which they must live their lives, that they become independent, that they no longer need the parent, and that they, if they wish, may become parents and creators of children in their own right. So I think there's a spiritual principle reflected in this, and that spiritual principle, as I am beginning to understand it, is that the infinite being, source, the supreme intelligence, God, for want of a better word, and I've said a few times, haven't I, when I use the word God, I am not now talking about a white-haired man on a throne with a personality, and I'm talking about God as the God of Kabbalah, the Ein, the source of all, the primal spark of life, the great intelligence that willed creation into being. Okay, so I think that I'm beginning to see that the intention of Source was evolution and the bringing about of a form of creation that develops. Now, when we talk about spiritual beings, we think of, depending, I guess, on our culture, in the predominantly Christian world, we think of angels and seraphim and cherubim and thrones and powers and wheels and such. We think of a hierarchy of spiritual beings, and the higher in the hierarchy that the spiritual being is, the closer in proximity they are to the presence of divinity. And we're taught that the angels do not have free will, that was a gift given only to humankind. I think I'm beginning to see that whilst factually that might be right, there are other things to consider, and that it's not that the angelic hierarchy don't have free will, It's not that something was given to us that wasn't given to them. It's that because of their proximity to divinity, their free will is that of divinity. For such is the pervading power of the majesty of the infinite, that everything that is close to it is in tune with its will. But the free will of the angels is the will of the divine. And that in order to free anyone from that all-pervading power, there had to be a separation. In order for the evolution of a spiritual being to become, like the earthly child, completely independent with its own set of internal morals and values, for the equivalent of that to happen spiritually, for a being to evolve that is not constantly influenced by proximity to the presence of divinity, there had to be a separation. There had to be a distancing from the infinite to that developing spiritual being. And so we have what's termed the fall, the separation of man from God. Now in Kabbalah, that is the pushing beyond the abyss. That creation, Malkut, 3D planet Earth, happens across an expanse which the minds, the consciousness of humanity cannot reach, that there is a separation between us and the infinite being. But that was always intended. It was that we may develop our own individuality, which forms around the splinter of divinity that we are, outside the direct influence of the infinite itself. So that if ever our will is to become in alignment with the infinite will, it is because that is how our will has developed, through our choosing, not because of the power of the influence of the proximity of the divine being on our development. Now, if that's right, there are other important things. So understanding this is quite important, because if we're saying that the separation of humanity from God was always intended, then what of Lucifer? What of the fallen angels? What of, if we go back to simple biblical teaching, what of the serpent who tempted Eve? That also must be part of the intention of the infinite, that a resistance can be set up, that a barrier can occur that gives us the separation that we need, that we might develop beyond the barrier, and that we might look across it and above it to the infinite, but not be directly and completely conditioned by the radiating magnificence of the will of the infinite being, as are the angels. So everything for a purpose. So what does that mean for us then? It means that our physical beingness, our lives in 3D manifest planet Earth, and that we might evolve to be something further along the evolutionary chain than the angels, than even the seraphim. But although right now they are much closer in terms of their proximity to the infinite being, they are not on the crest of evolutionary development like we are. It's our destiny to become something more, something different. Now what that is, I don't know, but I've always thought, you know, that we might become gods in our own right, that we might become the creators of our own universes. Who knows? I don't. But the journey of exploring and growing in understanding and being able to entertain these concepts is utterly fascinating and wonderful. Now, if you would want to kind of know more about this and delve into it a bit further, I can really recommend some materials, and that is the lecture cycle by Rudolf Steiner entitled The Spiritual Hierarchies in the Physical World. And that will give you so much food for thought that your mind will feel like it's going to explode. Anyway, thank you for listening. I'm going to end here, and I'll catch you guys soon. Bye for now.